Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, most impactful coordinator hires, turning our attention to the Southeastern Conference. What's the advantage of bringing Will Muschamp in? Like, what in 2026? Where's the value add of Will Muschamp? Is that just somebody who calls it great, somebody who's a great game planner? The recruiting operation at Texas, I'm not going to call it outright turnkey. It takes work. You're recruiting against some of the other top dogs in the industry. What attracts Steve Sarkisian to the hire of Will Muschamp?
I think it's probably energy.
Oh, culture?
Yeah. I think so. Okay.
If you're half-assing it, Coach Boom ain't going to let you half-ass it when you're out there, running the drills. It ain't going to be cushy with Coach Boom out there leading the way.
This is nothing nefarious. I don't want to say something on the air that's not true, but I was trying to look back through my notes and texts around the time when they hired Pete there. And my impression was was he going to keep coaching? Did he have to be convinced to come be DC? I'm not saying that's 100% fact, but if that was true, then maybe a change of scenery and some new energy in there would make some sense. He had a pretty good run, honestly. Texas defense has been quite good. It really wasn't the issue for the most part this year. I know the Penix team that was led by DeBoer for Washington, they ripped him up pretty good in the playoff the one year, but they've been a good defense under Pete. So maybe new energy potentially.
Yeah, I would say last year they were good. I don't think their defense was the problem, but they weren't great. Mm-hmm. They weren't an elite defense statistically. If you look at it, they were more of a top 35 defense than they were a top 10 defense. And I think that in the SEC, if you're going to be at the top of that league and if you're going to make a deep run into the playoff, you probably need to be a top 10 defense these days. So maybe the thought process is just a new voice in the room, new energy, kind of get things going. Or also maybe, they just didn't feel like they were aggressive enough or at least impactful enough when they were aggressive. Because if you look, they blitzed plenty, but their pressure per blitz rate, their havoc rate, all that kind of stuff was kind of well below average. And especially in pass defense, they were not a very good team. If you look at it from an EPA standpoint, they ranked 56th nationally. Maybe they're just hoping that a change can help, and change the overall vibe.
And they played some pretty crappy passing offenses too, if you think about it. I mean, they played Kentucky, they played Mississippi State, they played three nobodies in the non-con and Ohio State, and did a nice job against Ohio State, to be fair. Florida, which did not throw the ball well last year. A&M, which was a decent passing offense, even if I don't like Marcel Reed. They didn't suck. Oklahoma with Mateer coming off the thumb surgery. There's a game I'm missing in here, I'm sure. Did they get Arkansas?
Yes.
Didn't Arkansas score on them and they just scored $1 million on Arkansas? Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting some of last year's games. Usually I can remember every game each P5 team played or close to it. But yeah, that makes sense though, Tom.
What's getting off the subject a little bit here, but because they were elite, as far as the run defense goes. I'm looking at it right now, as far as EPA per rush allowed, I don't know, maybe there's some correlation here. The top 5 teams in EPA per rush allowed were all playoff teams. Texas Tech, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Indiana, Georgia, as was the 7th team, James Madison. Texas was 6th. So of the top 7, 6 made the playoffs. It's, of course, where you start to wonder is then after that, it's Auburn, Pitt, ECU, Toledo, Old Dominion, South Carolina, Washington, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Sark just feels like I wish we were better against the pass and not so great against the run.
What do you think about the idea that Georgia has punked them a couple times in a row and bringing in a guy that knows how to shut down your offense?
That could certainly be part of it too.
So I was going to bring up that I remember Will being very comfortable during those co-DC years. Glenn Schumann, for example, at the college football playoff media days, they put Glenn Schumann up on the podium and Will just got to kind of hang out over at the side. And you could just go up and you just, talk to him. He was just sort of standing off, but very clearly he had a role. And the 2 years that Will Muschamp was a co-defensive coordinator were the 2 national championship seasons for the Dogs. Now, is it easier to coach a defense when you've got Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, and the rest of that group? Like, yes, 100%. But I don't think it's a not nothing in terms of, well, what is Will Muschamp worth as a defensive coordinator in the modern era? Well, yeah, just a few years ago, he's winning titles as a co-defensive coordinator. Again, with the Dogs, a super talented defense, but still something that I think shows he's still got his fastball from a defensive coaching perspective. What else in the SEC stands out?
You mentioned the Buster Faulkner. Yeah. That's a great hire. The fact that he's bringing Philo with him, I think helps. But the thing I'd probably be most excited about, I think John Sumrall wants to be physical, and Brent Key wanted a physical offensive run game. Buster Faulkner's very creative in the run game. I think this probably might be the best hire of all of them.
Ooh.
I mean,
I like that.
Like, I had heard that Summerall wanted Faulkner at Tulane.
Before last season?
Back when Faulkner was still an analyst on Georgia's staff.
Oh.
So obviously he's not going to take an OC job at Tulane if you could be the OC at Georgia Tech.
And you got Jaden Ball back, you've got the gifted players to be able to build super interesting run game. What do we make of so Pete Golding had that hybrid Frankenstein staff for the college football playoff run? What do we make of what the Rebels are going to look like? A team that we talked about last week when it comes to realistic versus unrealistic expectations. John David Baker coming over from ECU, Patrick Toney, a name that's been floating around the SEC for a while. What do we think about what the Rebs coordinator hires look like?
Am I crazy to think? I don't think they're going to look that much different.
No.
Well, John David Baker was at Ole Miss before.
Right. It feels like continuity hiring. The defense, I assume, will still be something very similar to what Pete Golding wants to run. Now, I think it is hard to replace Kiffin Weiss as far as the offensive coaching chops there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's a shot at Baker. I don't know enough about him as a play caller at this level to say, like, yeah, he's for sure got that kind of ability or he doesn't. But I think that's a pretty attractive job. So my guess here is that Golding had to have some real belief in him, having worked with him, in order to get him to stay and to do it.
Another decision to promote internally. Jay Bateman out. So we're going to be promoting Lyle Hemphill to the DC job, and Colin Klein, of course, taking over as the new head coach at Kansas State. He'll be replaced with another internal promotion for Holman Wiggins. What's our book say here? I mean, Mike Elko, defensive coach, you're not going to think that you're straying too far from where we were at. What about offensively?
I mean, I think they had to know they were going to lose Colin Klein, right? Yeah. So, I mean, to somewhere, and then the way I heard it was that Kleiman kind of got wind that Klein might take a different job, and Kleiman knew he was probably going to retire anyway, and so he hurried up and was like, hey, if you want this one, let's go. So my point is, A&M probably should have been preparing on this the entire time, realizing that Klein is on the short list to be gone. I think he and Elko have the same agent too. So clearly there would probably be some communication as far as hey, dude, you realize this guy is probably not long for College Station. I don't know. Wiggins has been around the block. I don't know anything about him as a play caller.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he actually has ever been a play caller. Look at this. I mean, he was running backs coach at Tulsa, receivers coach at Memphis, 2012 to 2015. Which was under Fuente, I think it was. Yeah, because then he went with Fuente to the Hokies, and then he was Bama's receiver coach in 19 and 20. Not a bad group of receivers to coach there at Alabama, by the way, during that time, if you guys recall. That was what the Waddle, Devontae, and who's the third?
Judy.
And Judy, right, yeah. Crazy. And then was Ruggs on that team too?
Yeah.
So remember, Devontae was the holdover for 20.
Right.
The 20 team did not have the full superstars, but still had John Mechie, remember, who had also kind of emerged as another one of those speedster type options on that team, if I'm correct.
I would say all the things we just applied to Dan Lanning also apply to Mike Elko here.
Like, this will be a test.
It's a program with a ton of resources. You can probably go out and get, within reason, anybody you want who's kind of available. You decided to go internal, you'll probably be judged for it, right? In a way that the guys who go external are not judged for it quite as much, fair or unfair.
Danny Marcel
Wiggins, though. I just love the name.
Perfect. Great name. Danny, what's our thought on Marcel Reed for 2026? He'll be back. And so, again, kind of like the Oregon situation, we've got the continuity. We know who the quarterback's going to be. The quarterback knows who the coach is, and that's able to, at least you would think, be able to continue to build moving forward. What are the reasonable sort of expectations of the outlook for a quarterback who we've now seen for a couple years now in the SEC? He's given us a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I think what you want is consistency. Like, you want to know, like, the South Carolina game kind of encompasses the Marcel Reed experience, where he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in college football in the first half. And in the second half, he looks like potentially the best player in college football. You would much rather have a nice, smooth ride, maybe give up a little bit on the top end just to get some consistency. But I think he'll continue to improve. I think he was better overall as a passer. He did take a step forward, and I would expect him to do the same.
I'd agree with that. And then before we pivot out to the ACC, or am I missing any other ones, by the way, in terms of like notable SEC coordinator? I mean, Jim Knowles is the one I wanted to make sure that we hit, just because we've talked about him as a big dog in this sport. I can't tell if he if he's like 2 weeks away from hanging it up and saying it's been a great career, or if he's sponsored by a moving truck. Like, I don't know where to look at him in terms of the outlook, though. Tennessee fans wanted to change on the defensive side. This looks like, hey, we're Tennessee. Hey, we have resources. There's pressure on me as a head coach to make a change defensively. Let's walk into the market and let's go get one of the best names available. What do we think?
It's interesting because obviously the name, but you look at again, kind of like Chip Kelly going from being the coordinator of a national title team at Ohio State to the big deal made of him leaving Ohio State for Penn State. What a coup that was for James Franklin at Penn State last year. And then everything that happened at Penn State. And if you look statistically, like, that defense wasn't very good last year. They were great at putting pressure on quarterbacks, but everything else, they were kind of mid. So it'll be interesting to see now, going to Tennessee, like, that was a problem for the Vols last year. Their defense wasn't very good. So, or at least it was good. It just wasn't as good as it had been 2 years ago. So you're trying to get that back a little bit to once again compete at the top of the league, compete for playoff spots. Like, I don't think Jim Knowles has forgotten how to coach a defense. I do think there's a good chance that what happened to his defense last year was more a result of what was happening within the program overall. And it'll be interesting to see if he can get back to the kind of level he was at before, because there's a reason Ohio State hired him to begin with.
I remember Tennessee being a very volatile defense last year, right? Because you mentioned the pressure that they were applying on quarterbacks. Interceptions were really high, forcing turnover. I know that turnovers, there's always a little bit of, is it a skill? Is it coachable or not? But turnovers, defensive touchdowns, sacks, like all those things were going really well, but giving up explosive plays was also happening. The consistency was a very middle of the road. So we'll see if Jim Knowles can be able to provide some consistency right there.